like the intro music. Okay, we should be pretty close to live, I think.
I
Yeah,
think
are we
so.
live?
I think
We
so.
are live.
So we thought we had it working, and then we didn't. And
And then we didn't. And here we
um,
are.
you're looking very cinematic. Very
Oh, it's probably underexposed. Sorry.
not
The
I
the
mean that's the term people use for like,
oh
oh,
yeah,
fancy,
just,
but
just
no.
showing off my zits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, the light in here gets pretty bright, so I often will turn down the exposure, but as a result, yeah,
Mm.
it can look cinematic
I,
or
I
orange and
actually
green.
I think what I'm actually thinking, the I don't know if there's a term for it, but you're looking like the whenever Sybil Shepherd was on camera in Moonlighting.
Oh,
Do you remember that shit? Everything was like
I
always out of focus. Bruce Willis was always
am I
like
in
super
focus?
sharp, everything, but Sybil Shepherd, she was like, yeah, glamour.
I will say these days I tend to use a quarter or half mist filter. There's none on this lens,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah, I'm all about. I think back in the day it would have been Vaseline on the lenses.
yeah,
They put it in the center just to make
yeah,
the primary or the lead look a little bit better. Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
It's like they
yeah.
get the Sybil Shepherd lens and then the
Right,
lens for I forget the supporting actor's name.
Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis. Yeah, I
Yeah.
should know these things. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I used to have a special set of filters just for that,
Ah,
from a French company called Cokin,
I know cocaine.
Cokin. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know they were
yeah.
French.
I thought they were. Maybe
Now I
they're
know.
not.
Cocaine, yeah. I
Yeah.
always thought it maybe I confused Cook and Cokin together for a long time. I thought for some reason the Cook
Hmm.
lenses and the Cokin company were the same,
Ah, yes.
but I don't think they're related at all.
That would put them fancier than I think they are.
Yes, it's definitely French. I'm pretty good at the wiki. Very
Oh yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah, had no idea. So Cocaine, I guess. Jean
Yeah.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
And his name was in fact like a small rooster. So
A rooster. Yeah.
Coquin. Yeah, Cocaine.
Hmm.
And now we know.
Okay. We're done here now.
We has everybody learned something? I think our job here is done. Fantastic.
all. Oh, there's a bunch of people here today.
Yeah, I
That's
think we
good.
get 11 people. That's not too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Have you been paying attention to the news with regard to large
Whoa,
language
no,
models?
there's a lot of ways to go there.
I want to say, is it called Manu, the one that was recently
Oh, yeah,
released, the one that can manipulate screens? I think is as
yeah.
in
I
hand.
I started watching the intro video. I thought, wow, this is stupid, and I just removed it. I didn't pay any attention to it since.
Mano, my apologies.
Okay,
I think is what it is. Yeah,
Tom, have you played with it?
I have not. I'm a little bit. How do I say this right? I need to approach the perspective of having a computer program drive my computer with
Mm,
some trying to think that like it's not that I'm overly scared, but I'm definitely
right.
scared. So I need
Yeah.
to like have a VM set up, I think is what I'm
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah. I mean, ever since the first one of these came out, in I feel like October? No, actually before that. September, August, a while back.
Right.
It was, I think, Open Intelligence, OI.
Sounds about right.
Um, and then I don't know what happened to them. They they
I haven't
were
heard of them since.
they were selling, kind of pre-releasing this hardware product, and then the Rabbit and the other hardware device, Humane Pin,
Right.
all
Right,
came
right,
out
right.
and like were terrible. And then they
Yeah.
thought, maybe we're not going to be in the hardware business. This is really hard. We're just going to release the software and it'll be free.
Right.
But how are we going to make money? I don't know. And then I don't know. I don't know if they're still. I
Haven't
haven't
heard from
seen
you since.
any videos make waves since
I,
then.
I could cheat and quickly Google, but I have not heard of
Hmm.
them either. It's sort of sad. I think it was Open Intelligence, but I thought you could
Yeah.
grab something. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's
And
gone.
then Claude Desktop, or Claude had something for a while.
Yes,
That
I think that was in November.
right. Um, and then this is the latest. Well, I mean, I think there's been many others before and after, but these are like the three or four that have grabbed the attention of the world, or at
Yeah, I
least our
can't seem to
world.
find. OI seems to be ungoogleable as well.
Oh yeah,
maybe
yeah,
maybe someone in the chat will let us know. But yeah, I haven't heard. I want to say hide and tail from them, but yeah, I haven't heard from them since.
yeah.
That's too bad. Yeah, Mono is one, and then there was one more model also released yesterday or the day before that I haven't tried. It was also quite different, but it seems like we're getting into the new like OpenAI has is it $20,000 a month that their new
200, I
spending
thought.
tier?
Oh, was it?
No, I think
Oh,
it's
that's the.
20,000
Yeah. Okay.
as like an intern.
Yeah.
It's Manus. Manus is the name of the
Yeah.
agent. Manus. Yeah. Cloud computer
Yeah.
use. Like Gosai goes back to help us with the fact checking. Thank you, sir. Or thank you. Don't
Yeah.
want to assume your gender there. Thank you very much. Yeah, it looks like we're at the point now where we've realized that things are useful and we're trying to make
Right.
money off them,
Right.
which is fantastic, but also be better if they're a little bit more useful.
Yeah.
I've been playing around with something called well, it's got a bunch of names, but the Replit kind of category of software,
Mm,
or maybe I think another one out there, is it Lovely or Charming or something like that?
right.
Bolt is another.
Yep.
Uh, Loving maybe.
Lovable.
Lovable. Thank you.
Terrible name, but
it
stupid
is
name.
it is difficult for me to remember. Perhaps if I used it, it would be more lovable, and
Yeah.
and I would remember. But I'm noticing a bit of a trend, and some of this is because I watched like an A16Z report on
Mm,
like UI for Gen AI applications and what it looks like. But we're at the point now where like the simple chat window isn't enough, and the question is like if I don't want to say all you're doing, quote unquote, is giving somebody a chat interface, but if what you're giving them is a text form, what also needs to be in that text form? And some of
right.
it is for these newer apps is below them. They'll have little pills that you can click, kind of like
Right.
recipes that are ready to go. So, for example, since I have it open, like Lovable has a note-taking app is one of them. A slide dev presentation is another.
Mm,
That actually sounds kind of interesting.
mm,
Fitness tracker and a recharts dashboard are some of the
mm.
examples that you can just click, and it
Okay.
will start from there, which is pretty cool.
Right.
And I guess what I'm getting at is those are kind of like the happy path, or like the green path. So it's
Mm,
something new that's going to work for you.
right.
What I have noticed is that if I just type some stuff into this chat, it may or may not work.
Yeah.
And I was up till, I'm not gonna lie, 12:30 last night, trying to argue with I think it was Bolt DIY, the one that you can run with
Yeah.
your own local models kind of thing. Just trying to get it to understand that I'll be honest, I was trying to get it to install the Datadog tracer, but I don't understand Node. It's like
Hmm.
is the actual problem here. And I was trying to get to run in, I think, what you would call browser mode, but I was
Hmm.
misunderstanding and using like the quote unquote server mode. So
Mm,
assuming that some sort of back end component would be handling a front end,
right.
because that's how my brain works. But what I was actually creating was an app that would only run in the browser, and in
Right.
fact got it deployed to Netlify and all this fun stuff, really cool things. And that made me realize that actually fundamentally you don't understand how this code works. You don't get
Hmm.
if it's instantiated
Yeah.
in the user's browser
Yeah.
or like on the server, and that the user is getting the HTML component. So it's a bit of a learning moment for me, which is good actually, the fact that I'm
Hmm.
actually learning. The other is I'm learning about the thing that I do as a job as a developer. But I want to say that this development process, I think people are calling it vibe developing now, or
Yeah.
vibe
That's
coding,
such
which I
a
absolutely
stupid
hate.
name.
Yes, thank you. I think we did
I don't.
jokingly
I.
say vibes based development like 2 years ago, but like this was
Yeah.
in disdain. not,
Yeah.
not not saying this is a
That
good
name
thing.
came up like in the last 2 weeks, or I think, and it's
Yeah,
like,
because
oh,
Karpati said it in some blog
let's put a
post.
name attached to this thing that everybody's been doing for a while. Oh, now it's vibe coding. Oh, well, now it's
It's
cool. Uh,
terrible. No, it's
it
not cool.
results
The
in like
vibes, bad
terrible,
vibes. Yeah,
terrible
exactly.
results.
Bad vibes coding.
Oh God, yeah.
So like I get it.
It's a
People
nice
are out there.
test app. It's a nice like first draft.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
And sometimes not even that. It's kind of like tell me what the realm of the possible is. Or
Right.
like,
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
dummy, you don't understand Node.js. Maybe you should
Right.
go back and think about your
Yeah.
architecture. It's kind of good, but like
Yeah.
a lot of times the models won't say that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like, go back to the books or something. I've been doing things like saying, I'm Andre Carpati. Please write this out the way I would, which is kind of
Right.
interesting. Or you can give it like other names of people that are well
Uh-huh.
known kind of into the industry and kind of go through that. Like
Okay.
I'm Kelsey Hightower, write it in the way that
Right.
he would write Go or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
I love doing that. And you'll get something that's a little bit better than kind of the first year intern or not
Right.
even the zeroth year intern. But a
Right.
lot of times it feels like the intern just slapped something together
Yeah.
that they found on Stack Overflow presenting you
Yeah.
something with
Yeah. Exactly.
5 variables that do the same thing, 2 that are used in different spots, and
Right.
it's kinda interesting. So the zero shot thing typically didn't work for me.
Right.
The one shot thing, if you use the little buttons, generally is just a couple things to figure out. A lot of these apps don't understand the .env file. Like, please don't touch my .env file.
Right.
At least in Cursor and,
Windsurf.
Windsurf, you can actually set rules,
Right.
which is nice, and say like, "Hey, please, these are where the
Yeah.
secrets are.
Yeah.
Please don't rewrite these, or please don't use these secrets in the rest of the
Yeah.
code." That'd be great.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that a newer update, I think of Windsurf actually, you can there's a cursor as a Windsurf ignore now in the most recent version.
Well,
Maybe
normally
cursor Windsurf.
it will just pay attention to whatever's in get ignore.
Oh,
And
oh,
so if
interesting.
it's in get ignore, then
Oh.
cursor and windsurf has no access to it,
Cursor definitely
and then you
not.
can
Windsurf, I
override.
hadn't noticed the problem with it. Okay. Cursor definitely does have the ignore though. It's new then.
Mm,
That's gotta be what it is. I should try again in Windsurf and
yeah.
see what happens. But yeah, it's like that file, don't touch
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That'd be great. The other is some of these tools will have I want to call them vendors that they're kind of friendly with. And maybe that's what
Hmm.
I was trying to do, like because I know Datadog. So in terms of docs that I
Right.
know, that's one that I know. But it was able to get things like trying to think the Supabase is sort of the
Superbase
Firebase.
is the yeah, it's the vendor that all these things know, and they know the
Yeah.
docs, and so it's going to be Superbase and React, and if you want to
Right.
do those things, then they're great. Well, they're
Right.
great
I
for the
think
first draft, and
like 2
then
years ago, right? Like if
yeah,
yeah, if you're using Vite, I think is the software,
right,
and then React, and then
right,
Supabase, it seems to be that stack seems to be
right,
about a 2-year-old kind of stack that
yeah.
seems to be prevalent in most of these
Well,
apps.
and that's what the knowledge of a lot of these models. They
Right,
have
their
knowledge
cutoff
from
date,
2
right?
years ago, or a
Yeah.
year ago, or 9 months ago. Anything newer, well, it doesn't know. I mean, and or if it knows about it, like that was one of the interesting things. And I finally did watch that. How do I use an LLM video from Karpathy?
Pretty good, right?
And
Yeah.
and what's interesting is he thinks about, well, not only what are the questions that I have that are, I know the model probably has a lot of information collected about this topic because it's older or whatever, then I can ask the model. If I know that it's a more recent technology, maybe it's newer than the cutoff date, or
Right.
it's before the cutoff date, but there's not a lot of knowledge about it on the internet at that time, then I know I need to rely on web searching or RAG or something else.
Right. Right, that's a
Yeah,
good point. Yeah, if you're aware of the limitations, I guess that's the same. Like if Matt, you're
yeah.
my intern, I would know that you're not the person to come to me with like C sharp solutions. And if I made you do it, maybe I should check your work or
Yeah.
something like that. That's a good point. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think that's good to keep in mind. The other is that like for some of these tools, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent about Supabase. It looks fine. Don't get me wrong. But
I
one
used Superbase for a long time, and it's great. It's a great, like, easy to get started with database.
right now, you, Matt, as a developer, would you open up your database to the world for reads and writes? Because this is what I
No
commonly
way.
see. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, that didn't work. Let me just open up the database to be world writable or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
And it's wild troubleshooting. Totally get
Right.
it. Totally understand. The other is a lot of times it will devolve into like making my app a console app, which is okay,
Hmm.
totuld fine. But like where the UI go, it's like, oh, it's just
Right.
testing. Or like in some of these, they'll be like especially when you're confused, like, hi, you got a back end and a front end. You
Right.
may be confused about which port is doing what, and it's not obvious how to switch
Right.
ports. It's because they've got one little preview window, but it's all like these little weird kind of things. Like I've never had these problems
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
doing. I don't want to say normal development, but like the whatever the opposite of vibe-based development is,
Yeah.
or vibes development, or
Yeah.
vibe coding, whatever the opposite
Intelligent
of that is.
coding.
I don't want to say that. Yeah, like non artificial.
Yeah.
Um,
But one thing that was so before I felt I was reminded about a feature that's been in VS Code
Yeah.
forever, just in the last, I don't know, 2 weeks. Before that, I always thought, well, I need to make sure I'm like doing a commit, and then if there's a problem, the AI has gone 10 steps backwards and can't recover from that, then I
Right.
need to roll back to that GitHub commit.
Right.
And I was watching Wes Boss from Syntax. You ever watch
Okay.
that podcast?
No, I haven't. Huh.
Great stuff. Wes Boss and Scott Tolinsky, usually talking about JavaScript or TypeScript and
Oh, cool.
really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But they were talking about that exact problem, and most people forget that there is a timeline view in VS Code, and so you can go back even if you're not using Git. You can
Yeah.
go back,
Yeah, the quote
retrace your
unquote Git
steps.
flow view. Yeah, the
Yeah,
long one, right? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but
It's
it's
fantastic.
unassociated with Git, so it's
Right.
just part of VS
Right.
Code. And I was like, ah, yeah, of course I shouldn't. I should have realized that, and I could just roll back, to where I knew things were good.
Ah, that's really
And
cool
it,
because
it
I
incorporates
started.
GitHub commits as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
So if you have a commit, it'll have like a named um, a
Gotcha.
state, but then a whole bunch of unnamed states before
Yeah,
and
well,
after.
that's all I know is the name states. I haven't seen
Yeah,
the unnamed stuff. That's
yeah,
actually pretty cool. And also, I think I know this person because they've got a YouTube channel. But
yes.
is it a Sentry YouTube channel?
Century. So the
I think
podcast got
so.
acquired by Century.
How does
I don't know how that,
amazing?
and so I don't know if they became. I think they got hired on as employees to Century,
Gotcha.
and that was
Gotcha.
probably a year ago.
Okay, I haven't seen West Boss, but I've
Yeah.
seen the Sentry kinda whatever this
Mm,
branding is as a
yeah.
YouTube channel, and it's listen, again, no harm, no foul, I think
Century's
it's
great.
a great
Yeah.
podcast. What I'm realizing is that I know nothing about front end, man. I should have
Yeah.
been listening to you years ago. It's so easy, it's so
Yeah.
fun, it's so dirty, and it's so messy. The stuff I'm working with gives me warnings that you shouldn't just, cast anything to anything, it's like something that's been turned
Mm-hmm.
off. It's like, why? Why would you ever cast anything to anything? I think it's part of Bolt. It's just like, yeah, just
Yeah. Yeah.
allow casting of
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
variable type. That no.
I tried playing with Bolt. I couldn't. I just ended up giving up on it. It's like it was. I gave up quickly on it.
Yeah, locally with a Mac Studio running DeepSeek, I think I was using 32 billion parameters. I
Mm-hmm.
tried the 70, but it was way too slow. I went for a half-hour walk between steps. Um, and it still wasn't done,
Yeah.
which is fine. If you give something a task and you're willing to
Right.
wait overnight, totally okay. On the web, I find it's much better, but I ended up having to pay to make it work,
Yeah.
which again is totally fine. I'll probably just pay for a month,
Yeah.
not the end of the world. But I did want to see how things work. It was able to make the which I can make on my own, the Vite and TypeScript app. I'm not sure if you've
Mm-hmm.
seen it before. It's just like TypeScript loves Vite,
Oh,
and then
okay.
there's a little counter that you can click that
Right. Right.
the sample app. I think it's literally like Vitanit will do it. Or
Yeah.
what are people saying Vite? Is that what people
I
call
don't know.
this?
I don't know.
Okay, I should know. It means speed
Um.
in French, so I can't not say it. But
Mm,
you can do the init, and it will set up that sample project for you. That's the only thing I've been able to give it zero shot that works,
right.
which is
Right.
literally one of those buttons that you
Right.
click as you're starting to go in, which
Have you
totally makes
played
sense.
at all with MCP?
Oh, now you're touching on a subject I want to ask you about. I have
Okay.
done a bunch of research in the past couple days because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like when I was looking at Datadog, full disclosure, again for work, I was trying to figure out like what could this work like. I was trying to add our docs into things like Cursor and Windsurf for when I'm dealing
Mm-hmm.
with Bolt, pointing to URLs, just saying like,
Yeah.
are our docs consumable
Right.
as like a not a real time rag, but something like that, like on
Yeah.
demand? Can you parse these and give me an answer? It seems to depend on the model that you're using. I've had really good luck with 3.7 Sonnet, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
there yet. And what I was thinking of is MCP seems like it would solve this problem for us for a
Right.
couple things. The other is like, hey, if you just said you're going to put metrics in the dashboard and you've got the API key over here, why don't you look to see if there are metrics in
Right.
the dashboard? And it's like the app's like, no, whoa, like, that doesn't make any sense. So I end up having to write it myself, which is not
Yeah.
very hard to do.
Yeah.
Like TypeScript's phenomenally readable
Mm-hmm.
for me. But also the fact that it just doesn't understand like what a test is. Like you have to
Right.
explain all these things in some big PRD document all the time. I haven't used MCPs. Super interested in them, in particular for database things, which I haven't heard of too much. But I have seen a lot of other tools out there that have MCPs that you can add to your IDE that I'm very
Hmm.
hype on using. So I'd love to hear more. What can you tell us? Do you have an episode
Well,
coming up that I can subscribe
I
to?
well, sort of.
Okay, okay.
So one that I was also ignoring MCP for a while, and I finally got into it, and
It's
it's
been a year, right?
interesting. No, November, December that it came
Okay,
out.
not too bad. Okay.
Um, so so there's the idea of tool use in with models in general. So
Mhm.
a model. The common misperception is that the model will run the tool. Models cannot run tools. No model in the world runs a tool. There's always
Right,
the wrapper around the model that
right,
will run that tool. And in often case, like with OpenAI, I think they have a service that that is that wrapper around the actual model that will be able to run tools. And if you give it the tool, as long as you have some way of giving the tool um, the information about how to run the tool. Um, but so normally when running things locally, like with Olama,
mhm,
it's the same, essentially the same syntax that you give the model. It says, I have this tool. It gets weather from some. It
right,
doesn't even need to know. It gets weather,
right,
and you just say, I need the only things I need from you from the model are what city and what date, maybe. And then it will return the current or that weather for that date for that location. And then the model can take that information and go further with it.
right,
So that's tool use. But in order to really take advantage of those tools, the
mhm,
application really needs to be written with those tools in mind.
right,
So that's usually when this integration happens. The benefit of MCP is it becomes more of a plugin that can be added at runtime. And
right,
so applications like Windsurf or Cursor or
right,
a number of other tools have been written, and you can just add a configuration file that says, here's my MCP server, interrogate that to find out the list of tools that are available. Hopefully those tools include a description. So now the model will have this list of tools and descriptions and can make a decision about what tool is needed next, um, as well as the variable or the parameters required to run that tool. And then that runner, that host, can then run the tool itself because it's been given um, you can either run the tool locally on that machine, in which case it's
mhm,
just running a command. Usually it's an npx command or a uv command for Python.
right.
Um, or you can have it on a remote server as well. And that gets a little bit more complicated because you need to have access to that server.
Right.
Um, so it's interesting in that it is a standard kind of plugin mechanism for these tools to a host. I wish they had. It feels like
Does
it
it
was
feel
like this
backwards?
first draft of a spec that they released, thinking nobody's really going to latch onto it, and we'll be able to
Right.
tweak it later on. But people actually latched onto it, and they can't tweak it anymore now. And now it's this very academic feeling. It feels more like
Yeah,
it's like Java is overly complicated version of lots of other languages. The MCP is a overly complicated version of what it should have been, a standard plugin interface.
right. I will say on the note of Java, they did just release their Java SDK, so maybe you're right
Hmm.
on the money here. Perhaps that is the
Mm-hmm.
level of complexity that they're looking
Yes.
for.
Yeah.
Now, for examples in here, I did mention a database because that's what immediately came
Hmm.
to mind. I didn't realize that there is PostgreSQL as well as
Hmm.
SQLite
Yep.
MCP reference setup. There's also one for Sentry. Speaking of
Hmm.
GitLab, GitHub, and Git, Brave, Puppeteer, Slack. There's quite a few Google Maps in here.
Yep.
Some of them I'd not heard of. EverArt. Does that ring a bell to you?
Ever
For
art? No.
image generation. Cloudflare was in here as well as like Kubernetes, Docker, Snowflake, Spotify,
Right.
Todoist. There's this small note-taking app called Obsidian. Have you heard of them?
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that.
Something
Yeah.
about Obsidian vaults. Can you
And
host your vaults? Is that why?
Well, in that case, it would probably be the if you're running with, let's say, Windsurf or Cursor,
Hmm.
you've told Cursor about the MCP for Obsidian. That's running
Ah,
on your local machine, and your
gotcha.
Obsidian database or Vault is on your local machine, so it can
Very
pull
cool.
data out of that.
Yeah, I was worried about that latency if it had to be hosted
Hmm.
online or what have you, just
Yeah.
because it seems like it'd be faster otherwise. Very, very interesting. There's a
And
whole
then there's
MCP
a
servers
number
as
of
well.
other registries.
Yep.
So I think there's Glama, I think, or Glava, something like that, and
Mm.
um, there's a few other registries that have collections of MCPs available,
Hmm.
but this is code. If normally they're going to be the command version, or other otherwise it's the server version. But either way,
Okay.
you are giving this. eh, The source is usually available somewhere, and it's up to somebody, because it's open source. The benefit is that somebody's going to look at the code, except they're not.
Hopefully.
But
Yeah.
they're going to look some. That's the promise, is that they'll look at the code and identify problems before you use it. But will they? I don't know. But the idea with this is that you will download that. I think you'll download that executable, or not the
Hmm.
executable, usually the JavaScript or the Python, and then run it locally. So npx or uv to run that command, and that is running the tool. But you're just grabbing this tool from somewhere else and running it, rather than needing to necessarily install it locally. I, I think.
Right.
Um, so there's a bit of trust, because
Indeed.
you're giving it access to your, well, usually like with GitHub, you can have it, create a repo for me. And here is my GitHub access, my API key or
Yeah,
whatever.
that part worries me. Sorry.
Have you gone through all that code to verify that the version that maybe it's already been verified once before, but we've definitely seen that even though it's been verified, it's using a component that pulls in, that has been compromised. And now we
Hmm.
get this newer version of the component, and that's what you grab, which has not been verified. And now you are running this potentially dangerous code that is going to take your GitHub key and share it with some. Who knows? I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but we don't know. And some people were upset with Misty. I did a review on Misty,
Misty.
which is
Yep.
a front end for Olama and lots of other tools. And some people didn't like it because it's closed source. And yet, those same people, or some of those same people, not all, have no problem using MCP, uh, where they're grabbing
Right.
random
Right.
code from online and then running it locally with all
Right.
their credentials, and see no problem with that. And
Yeah.
there's a big problem with that. So it makes it
I
really easy
agree.
to run this external code, and it probably shouldn't be that easy.
Right. I when I see MCP capability for Kubernetes, immediately red flags. Like
Yeah,
it's just waving the red flags everywhere. But I do feel like if it's something that you're making on your own
sure.
internally, this could be
But
just as dangerous,
if it's
maybe more
something that you're
trustworthy.
building on your own, and you're building the application as well, why bother with MCP in the first
Also true.
place? Just use
Yeah.
the traditional tool use.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah,
hear you.
I mean, or you're using Cursor and Windsurf, and you are integrating the MCPs that you have built yourself. And
Right.
that's a great, being able to take the tools that I know because I built them, and have Cursor run them. That's pretty magical.
It is pretty magical. Or Claude or what have you. Let's
Or
say you
whoever, yeah.
standardize on
Yeah.
Claude or
And
yeah.
the fact that I write that integration one time, and now all the different tool sets can use it. That's great.
And then
But
can ChatGPT
there's
sorry,
also
go ahead.
different levels of integration with MCP. There's the actual command, there's also prompts, and there's also something else. And Cursor, I think, does all three of the things, and Windsurf does one of the things. um, I don't know, I don't understand what the prompts are yet, but yeah,
Very
I think they're
interesting.
like example prompts.
Yeah, fair enough. I did do a quick ChatGPT plus MCP search. What I found interesting is that I found somebody's chat history that was made public, where they're asking Claude about Anthropic MCP. It's very, very, very strange. This this is the world that we're into, where the search engine is finding results where it's just an artifact from a conversation somebody's had with
Right.
a
And we
very,
saw
very
that
weird.
earlier, before, where those conversations would then get used for training, and
Right,
then you could find those conversations in ChatGPT, which
right.
was a breach of the security, or
Yeah.
they weren't very clear about whether it was a breach or not.
Yeah,
It's like, oh,
this
this
was
is supposed to
shared.
happen.
Yeah, it was shared publicly, but also it was
Yeah,
shared publicly by a non it's
right.
just very odd to me. But yes, I am really interested in MCPs. I think mostly because if people are going to be scraping your docs as part of their work, the
Hmm.
question is how do you make those usable in a way that makes sense, kind of thing.
Hmm.
I noticed when it was going through our docs, our being Datadog, is that it would get the docs really well, but it would miss the guides, and the guides would often have
Mm,
a step-by-step guide of exactly what you want to
right,
do. Oh, you're
right,
trying to get like, I don't
right.
know, rum in a browser environment. Like we
Yeah,
have it like a the docs team has made it's like an exact doc for you, and you'll find it linked to from the
yeah,
article, but it won't follow that link or
yeah.
neglects. It doesn't
And
scrape as deep as I expect.
I found that like the database I tend to use like first for, because
Yeah,
I've got it hosted myself, is NoCoDB.
right.
You know,
You've mentioned it a few times.
um,
Yep.
and so there's two versions of the API. Version
Hmm.
one is just plain HTML. Version
Oh, interesting.
two
JSON?
requires a JavaScript browser to render
Yep.
it more beautifully, so it looks
Yep.
really great. But if you don't have JavaScript, such as, oh, maybe you're an automatic, process that's going to
Right.
download all this stuff, then you don't see anything. So the only
Right.
version you can see from that process is version one, which does it badly.
It's awful.
um,
Have you played around with ShadCN? I can't pretend to be an
mm-hmm.
expert in this at all. One of the problems I've got using that is that it's convinced that there's a hyphen UI at the end of this because it renamed at a certain point, and
Oh,
depending on the
really?
cutoff date of the model, like it will often try
Mm-hmm.
to fix problems by shoving in the hyphen UI. So it's actually really handy. So that plus, oh shoot, Wind. There's another Wind something. The
Yeah,
CSS library plus this plus
yeah,
Next.js or Bun or whatever generally is a pretty good stack. It looks
yeah,
nice, and
yeah.
you can say, make this look pretty, and it'll look
Tailwind.
pretty. Tailwind, thank you.
Yeah,
Tailwind plus ShadCN seems to be kind of a recipe that works
it's
for a lot of
they're
easy
great.
apps.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like it reminds me of Bootstrap, the good old days of just
exactly.
using big Bootstrap 3 and just slap it on
Yeah.
the front of something, and they all look the same. But whatever, they looked okay.
But then you have other apps that, I mean, it's not always good to have all look the same, because like
Also true.
Gradio, every app has the
They're
same
so
garbage look.
ugly. Thank you. Those
They
like
look
orange
horrible.
icons. Don't use orange icons. Don't use red or orange
Yeah.
icons. These mean warning. Use any other color.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah, Gradio I'm not a fan of, but I do understand the fact that it's quite fast. Like if you want to get something iterated on really quickly, Gradio is pretty good for that. I
Hmm.
get it. So is Streamlit. I haven't tried Streamlit yet. I get that part, but yes, I'm not a fan of the look and feel at
Right.
all, at all, at all. It's jarring to me.
So one other thing about MCP, another
Yep.
host that I found recently that I think is really pretty cool.
Hmm.
Have you opened up Docker Desktop recently?
Yes, I installed it on Windows in
Okay.
anger the other day. There was a lot. It looked like World of Warcraft. I want to say, and I closed it right away. There was shiny stuff everywhere vying for my
Hmm.
attention. I was like,
Hmm.
"Is the daemon running? All right, we're closing
Right.
this because there was
So
a lot to look at." My apologies.
so
I totally closed it.
With Docker, I found that anytime I've mentioned Docker in a video, like here's how to update Olama, and here's how to
Yeah,
update it on Windows, here's how to update it
yeah,
on Mac, here's how to update it with Docker,
right.
I get some comments that are like, "Why are you mentioning Docker? Docker is garbage. It's too complicated."
Or
It's
Podman. It's have they
and
used
people
Podman?
are, no, 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 no. If they're worried, if they're complaining about this kind of thing, they're not using Podman either. They're
Correct.
not, because
Thank you.
this is more so, because 3 years ago I was I mean 3 years, well, starting in 2012 when I started working at Datadog,
Yep.
uh you know data uh, Docker was important, extremely important to
Yeah, I feel like
Datadog
it
and
still is,
to
but yeah,
Amazon and to all these other, it was
absolutely.
if you were working at a company where I am going to, be involved somehow in whatever you're doing, then you probably already know about Docker. And
Right,
so it's kind of like it's just an assumption. You can just assume everyone
right,
knows about Docker. Anybody, if you're ever going to do a talk, they're going to know about Docker, and they're probably going to know far more about Docker than I do.
right.
Um, but now I'm in this other world, and there's a lot of people that don't know Docker,
Yeah,
um, and so they see because Docker has existed since 2010 or 2012. There's been a lot of versions, and the syntax for the Docker file has definitely changed. There's some things that have gone away.
yeah, I guess that's true.
The
There's
way they
different versions,
link
right? Yeah.
well, the way they link different Docker
Mhm.
containers to each other has changed. There was a whole swarm. All these features of Docker have come in and then gone away, and so and
Right,
Docker, I feel like very smartly has made sure that all those versions of the documentation still exist on the website. So whatever version
right.
you have, you can go and find it. But if you're just starting
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
and you
Good
find
point.
some example
Yep.
online
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
is, because you went to the DigitalOcean example of here's how to run Nginx and
Right. For,
Docker,
like,
who
Ubuntu
knows what
18.
version it
Yeah,
is?
yeah.
And before the version comment was required. Now it's deprecated. There's no need for version at all in the
Right,
file when it really needs to be there because
right,
uh, so there's this wall of information you need to learn in order to understand how do I create a Docker file. When I have a port, is it host port then container port, or container port then host port? Is it
right,
for volumes? Where are the volumes stored? There's a lot of information to know, and it's
right.
hard to learn that stuff. So in Docker, starting with the previous version, I think, and now with this version
Yep.
of Docker Desktop, which Docker Desktop on Mac, Windows, and Linux, um, there is Gordon. I don't know why they chose Gordon. When you do a
Sorry.
search for Docker Gordon, apparently Dockers, the pants company, had a pair of shoes called the Gordon. That's I don't know why I don't understand it. But Gordon is their AI assistant. And so if you go into Docker Desktop
It's like
or
when people name their dogs with a
yeah,
human name, it's there's nothing wrong with this. I get it.
so so you can either in Docker Desktop go to the Gordon tab,
Right?
or you can go to on the command line Docker space AI space ask a question about your Docker environment. Show
What?
me show me the containers that sort the contain or list my containers sorted by size of their volumes or whatever, and it generates the command and spits out the answer, which is great. And so it provides this kind of getting started tool for this system that has gotten to be kind of complicated if you don't have the experience. And so I think it's pretty cool. And it now
Are
has
you trying
integration with MCP.
Yeah, I was like, "Are you trying to tie this in?" Because I'm reading the docs right now, and I just got to the MCP page.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Now it's not perfect because you're not configuring MCP for Gordon
Right.
across the entire environment, just within
Oh,
the working directory for that
okay.
container that you're building.
That might be better.
But yeah,
In
I'm not
fact.
sure.
And, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I've got a few thoughts there. I guess I probably want both, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I'd
as a
like to
default,
have
that might be better.
a global configuration where I can configure one or two MCPs, and then specific to the working directory where there's
Yeah.
others.
So the one I came across, which they reference here, is the AWS knowledge base retrieval server, which
Mm,
immediately light bulbs started going off in
yeah,
my head. Like,
yeah,
aha, you're starting to understand front end. Is it
yeah,
time to relearn Lambda? Like that's
yeah.
kind of where I'm at. And I feel like this could actually help me because I know a bit about Lambda, but not whatever newfangled
Right.
layers there are. Like that I struggle sometimes to add
Yeah,
Datadog in as a layer to
and
Lambda.
it's not just another way of running a general AI. I
No.
I tried asking what are black holes, and it said Ask a question about Docker,
Yeah.
and I will answer it. Otherwise, I don't
That's
know
kinda cool,
anything.
though. They've got guardrails set up,
Yeah,
because a lot of these tools like Bolt AI and stuff like that, you can still ask, "Why is
yeah,
water wet?" and it will answer you. Yeah.
yeah.
Very interesting. Okay,
So yeah, I
I
just I just discovered that in the last few days. I thought it
this
was
is
cool.
phenomenal. I don't wanna cut you off. I do have, an
Oh
actual
yeah, actual cutoff.
appointment after this, but, my recommended this week is, I'm trying to give you, like, an on-ramp to this. So I'm wearing the recommendation, which is this.
Hmm.
Now when you look at this shirt, if I hold it up,
Okay, I don't see
sorry
the
for those on the
what was there words on it?
there is words.
These C's, the OCs,
You
the
got it. You don't know the
OCs.
bands, that is okay, but you couldn't tell that this was printed from a JPEG. So
No.
here is the disclaimer. Please do not rip off bands that you love that have made t-shirts that are out of print. However, if you do need a shirt that's out of print from a band that you love dearly, you may find somebody on Redbubble who somehow
Hmm.
found a JPEG where they're reprinting it. That's how I got this. I feel bad. It's a tour
Hmm.
poster. I don't think it was ever a T-shirt, and it
Hmm.
does. Like you can see the JPEG
Oh yeah.
artifacts if you're up close. I don't think anyone other than me realizes it's JPEG and it's not like a printing problem because it kind of does look a bad print.
Right.
But I got a couple shirts from Redbubble. I swear I'll make this relate to work in a second here. I promise.
Wait,
One of the shirts
isn't
that
that the come with the aren't the don't they have like those vending machines where you get the DVDs out of?
no, that was oh man, what was that? That was Red something though. I heard about them this morning because I think they got sold
Oh really?
again. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. No, it does still
That was
exist.
a
Exactly.
relevant comment.
Yeah, yeah, a DVD lending company, right? It's
Yeah.
it's Red something else. Um, Redbubble, funnily enough, it uses the same shirts that Datadog used, the canvas
Oh,
shirts,
okay.
the nice ones.
Yeah.
Um, and it's so comfortable. It
Oh
it
yeah.
feels like that type of shirt. So I'm
Right.
not saying use Redbubble for your swag, but if you
Right.
happen to try to get a band t-shirt from there, the one that says soft and supple or the lightest one that they've got is a
Mm.
canvas shirt and it's so comfy.
Oh
So
really?
that's where I am now.
Not the
The
American Apparel ones from before, but
no,
the canvas.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, the canvas ones. I would say, like, it needs to be washed a bunch because any of these
Yeah.
prints that are really big, kinda it's just a little bit
Yeah.
thick, but it feels amazing, and it's
Oh,
hard to get shirts that actually feel good, so, yeah, I was pretty
right.
happy. That is
Redbox.
my recommendation.
Redbox is the
Redbox is exactly who we were both thinking of. Ghost Saigo's here to save the day. Also, I didn't ignore your comment about I think that's Quen, that you're talking about, Quen for Code. I've heard the same, that I've been recommended a few times now to try Quen instead. And yeah, use the bigger one. I think it's 64 or 65, but it is quite a bit faster, which I'd like to try out.
Yeah, so I've got a video that I've done all the testing
Okay.
on QW. You say it's Quinn
EWQ.
for code?
Yeah, I think it
Okay.
is. Yeah.
So I have, and it's pretty good. There are some things that are just like all the other reasoning models. It's like super frustrating at times, but it's pretty good. It's definitely the better of all the reasoning ones I've looked at.
Yeah, they do have a 32 billion one here. I thought it was, larger than that, though. I thought it was almost double that was the one. But yeah, the 32 one is pretty widely regarded
Yeah.
as good. I don't wanna say, like,
Yeah,
people say, but,
32
like,
is the
I've
one I've used.
okay, okay, so maybe that's what he's saying is that it is 32. That's quite a bit
Yeah.
faster. But yeah, it does seem to be fast enough. A
Yeah.
lot of times I'm just doing, like, quick little tweaks. I legitimately don't understand TypeScript, like, at all, at all. So sometimes it's down to, like, imports and things like that, so
Right.
I really need help. Sorry, go ahead.
So I saw that TypeScript, they're doing a rewrite, a
Oh,
port of TypeScript, of the TypeScript compiler, instead of being written in TypeScript, being written in Go.
interesting. What a
Um,
choice. Okay.
and they're seeing like a 10x improvement. Like for building
Really?
Visual Studio Code in TypeScript, it is so much faster than it was before. And there's so that was
Ah,
I saw a video with Anders Heilberg talking about that recently.
perfect.
It's pretty
And
interesting.
GoSigo wanted to let us know that it is Code is different than QWQ. My
Okay.
apologies. I think I conflated the two, but
Okay.
QWQ is a model from Quen, but
Quen,
it's not the
yes.
Quen Code one,
Yeah, I
which I
don't know
had
what
tried
the
before.
WQ stands for.
I don't either, but it seems to be quite good. It seems to be
Yes,
quite good.
yes.
I've got it open up here, but yeah, It's kind of interesting. The
Hmm.
the fact that things are changing so quickly. What I'm really interested in is that I helped a friend out the other day with a 1070, which is not a
Mm.
great graphics card. It's
Hmm.
5 generations old, I guess, at this point in
Yeah.
time, since we're on 5000s. The like Llama 3.2 is actually non-trivial when it comes to older devices. It
Right.
can make them sing. And some of these
Yeah.
quantized models are
Yeah.
surprisingly, like even 3.3, surprisingly efficient
Yeah.
on older devices. And it's
Yeah. So
alarmingly
fifth
fast.
generation, I keep hearing more and more stories about how these fifth
Melting?
generation cars are not that good.
No, it
Or
sounds like they save the good ones for the enterprise
yeah,
is what it
yeah.
looks like, yeah. Is that maybe the 6000 series GPU that's about the Blackwell GPU? I think it was launched
Mm.
today. That
Okay.
one will be like the data center GPU, and
Right.
it might be
Right.
more for these kind of tasks, but yeah, it looks like the days of using a gaming graphics card for
Yeah.
AI models,
Yeah.
not over, but at least maybe over from the NVIDIA side. It sounds
Yeah.
like the AMD one's actually pretty handy, and you
Yeah.
don't need to use ROCm anymore, you can use, oh, shoot, I'm trying to think of the other. It's not
Vulcan.
Metal. Vulcan, thank you. Yeah, you can use Vulcan for some of this stuff, which was surprising to me, but I thought it was all ROCm.
Mm.
That's where we are. Sorry, I
Cool.
don't wanna steal your
Um,
thunder, though. Do you have any checkouts or anything? You haven't thought of this at all, have you?
I have thought about it deeply, and
Yeah, I can
now
tell.
I'm bringing it back to the surface is sometimes a challenge.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's the
No,
iceberg, right?
I
It's too far down below the water.
yeah, I feel like I got no,
Well, tell me if you don't. Did you pay for Windsurf, and do you think you're getting value for your money? Because I'm about to buy it as well as Cursor and
I
run them against
I
each other. Because
I
sometimes I
do
run out of credits and I'll open up the same project in the other
right.
one, so it's like I might as well pay for both.
I do pay for Windsurf,
Okay,
and I do feel I get value. I don't use it every day. Um, and I go back and forth. There's some days where I just rely on the automatic code writing to do everything for me, and
right,
there are other days I don't. And I some days I get. I think it's nice. They make it very. They kind of bubble up to the top how many credits you're using all the time, which is sometimes
right,
frustrating, but
right.
also at the same time, it's like, oh, maybe this thing I can switch over to the DeepSeek model, which is free.
Or you could
Um,
possibly write it on your own, is what I keep
or I can
reminding
write it on
myself.
my own. Yes, I am kind of smart. There's
They
some
they've got that
tasks where you,
Cascade model,
yeah,
right? That you
yeah,
can use as you're typing, which I find is actually more than enough for a lot of what I'm
yes,
doing. Like if I
yes,
knew it, if it's Bash or
yeah,
Python or what have you, Terraform, no problem
right,
whatsoever.
yeah. I had been a customer for Super something else. I forgot the name
Okay.
of it. It was the company that got bought out by Cursor, um, and which was the company that was founded by the folks that founded Tab9.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
Super
but
Maven, maybe?
Super Maven, yeah.
Okay.
Um, but then I switched to Windsurf and canceled that subscription. Um,
Now, I just spent a long time talking about Bolt new
hmm.
and Bolt DIY. There's a
Hmm.
Bolt AI that I came across in my research.
Okay, yeah.
Have you heard of this tool for
No,
macOS?
no.
It feels like it's trying to be raycast a little bit, and that it will
Hmm.
it takes over control space and it's contextually aware, and you can tell it to do things based on control space. It's really hard to look for bolts, by the way, because there's
Yeah,
so many, especially in the AI space. There's a few of them.
yeah.
Two of them are from the same company, but one of them bought a repo and changed its name, which is really confusing. And then the other one, I think, pre-existed. Um, what's interesting is that you like there's one in here, for example, it's by default, it'll go out to Mixtral, sorry, and ask it to change the text that you've got. So like write this better is basically the prompt. And then if your text is selected, you hit control space, you can run it by default and what will come up in a pop-up native to macOS. Which is a
Hmm.
little bit different than these other tools. It's like part of the UI, and I'm not gonna say it's good, but I think this paradigm is better than what we're getting at. And I like
So
the way
Bolt
Raycast
AI
works as well. Bolt AI, yeah, all one
uh,
word.
at boltai.com.
I think so. It's got
Okay.
it's all together. It's a white icon with a
Yeah,
yellow lightning bolt.
yeah,
Okay, as opposed to dark mode and purple, I think
yeah.
for the other bolts.
Interesting. It's Oh, interesting. Okay. Uh, so I've been using an alternative to this
Okay.
um, for some of the things that looks like it's trying to do, called Curlig.
Okay. I recall you talking about that before, in fact.
Did
Was
I?
it last
Okay.
week?
I
Maybe
think I might
last
have talked
episode,
about it
sorry.
last week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We did talk about it last week.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
This
I
looks
I
pretty
feel like
interesting.
this
This is nice because
yeah.
it's all like it is in the app.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. It's like part of something.
Yeah.
It's like another layer, like your OS is another
Right.
layer on top of it, and with that layer comes AI, which is pretty cool. So it's in the presentation layer, I guess,
Yeah.
which I
Now,
find
I
pretty
still
interesting.
don't have access. If I'm responding to a comment, I would have to select that comment and then paste it
Yes.
in
No.
to,
You could select it and
oh,
hit,
select it and then,
control space, but you would have to
okay.
select it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like if you're in the field, it would suggest it's not
Right.
like it's not that good at Clippy,
Yeah. It
but
doesn't
we're
know what, oh, the previous bit of text is the response that I'm responding to.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it wouldn't know. Um, it's speaking of though, Clippy does seem to be making a resurgence in terms of like this type of tool though. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people
Yeah.
interested in like that assistant being in an app with you
Right.
in a way that can help, hopefully.
Yeah.
But it does feel like the return that paradigm may have been prescient, it
Yeah.
looks like. Yeah.
Just Microsoft was 20 years ahead of its time.
Which it's happened before.
Yeah.
Timing is difficult. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they if timing had been different, Microsoft would be the king of multi-touch displays because they had it
That's
first,
right.
but
That's
Apple
right.
did it right.
That's right. And you'd still be
Yeah.
working there and you'd be writing C sharp and you'd be loving it, loving it,
Yep,
loving
yep.
it. Maybe F sharp, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
All right.
Okay,
I
so
do
you've
have to
got
head
a
out though.
cutoff. So let
Yep.
me hold you on for just a few more minutes. No,
Okay, what do you got?
no, I don't. Is it actually important?
It is, yeah. This one time, I just have someone visiting from out of town who wants to do some portraits, and they've only got like a
Oh,
specific
okay, not a
time they can
work
do it.
thing.
So it's
Okay.
well, it's a what do you call this? A side hustle thing.
So
Much like
nice.
this conversation, in fact.
Yes.
But yeah, it's more of the stuff outside of work that keeps me sane, I think, which is
Yeah.
important from time to time. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh,
Any oth-
okay. So yeah, we get some more comments. Thank you very much, folks, for being in the
Yeah.
chat. We had, I think, we've got 14 viewers. That's
Yeah.
great.
That's pretty good.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for watching us live. And if ever there are questions, feel free to add them on the video. I do check them once in a while.
Yeah.
Matt, I think, checks them.
Yeah, I generally check them. Yeah.
All right, folks. Thank you very
All right.
much. Have
All right.
yourselves a great day.
Bye.
Bye bye.